tonight, and his coworker Coralie Keneal. And I thank you for your participation. Lynn?
Thank you. With that, I will jump in. It's so good to be here. It's a privilege to always sit with you very early on a Saturday morning. It's been a couple years since we came and spoke about this topic, and I'm so happy for Miss Brenda and Miss Michelle to invite us back. We're really happy. I will introduce myself, then my colleague will introduce herself, and we'll say a few things, and we'll jump into a PowerPoint that we have. So my name is Lin Ngay. I serve as the prevention director for Department of Human Services, and I've been with the county for about 17 years now. It's been quite a bit. I started out as a counselor, and I became a supervisor, and then I really switched gear and started doing prevention. For me, it was just the right time to do prevention, working on the important issues that if we upstream, if we intervene earlier, that hopefully we can change some of the outcomes that we saw at the treatment level. So it's been a very rewarding work for me in prevention, and I'm happy to be here to share some of the messages with you today. So with that, I'll turn over to Cora for her introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Coralie Keneal. I go by Cora, and I am the Children's Services Act coordinator. And we provide funding to some of our kiddos and families who are unable to access it through insurance, to support them with their mental health needs. And thank you all for being here. I was nervous at first, and then I saw all the kind faces, so my spirit relaxed a little bit. So it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Cora. And I kudos to Cora. We invited her to join me very last minute, and she jumped right in, knowing that we are presenting to Lomax. So I am in deep gratitude for you, Cora, to be here with me. But with further acknowledgement before we start, we would like to acknowledge Reverend Adrian Nelson, pastor, for allowing our presence today. We would want to also acknowledge Ms. Brenda Cox, the coordinator of Lomax Senior Ministry. Michelle Pincham is the coordinator of Health Ministry. And from DHS, we would like to acknowledge our leadership. Tabitha Kelly is our Child and Family Services Director, Division Director. And then also my direct supervisor is Jamie Premdas, who is the Bureau Director for the Child and Family Services Bureau. Okay. So we'll turn it over to Cora to start us off. Oh, you know what? I think we need to be share as co-host. Is it Stephen who would do that so we can share a PowerPoint?
I do see I have capacity to share.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Could you go ahead and do that then?
sure.
Oh,
Let me,
wonderful. Thank you, Cora.
and let me know if you all can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll put it in presentation mode.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry. Let me see if I could. All right.
Thanks for your patience. At the county, we use Teams much more often than Zoom, so we always have to fumble through Zoom. There it is. It looks great.
Awesome. And it's in presentation mode, right?
Yes.
All right, awesome. All right. So I think kind of like Mrs. Cox mentioned, we want to start this conversation with you all. And when me and Lynn planned this presentation, we really want it to be an open conversation as well. We don't want to just talk at you with information. So please feel free to chime in at any time. All right. So if you're seeing the stats on the screen, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Individuals over 60 are especially vulnerable to suicide, and this could be for a lot of reasons. And I'm not sure if when you saw that second sentence, certain things came to mind, but they're especially vulnerable due to loneliness, loss of loved ones, loss of self-sufficiency. I think that's one that we don't often talk about or sometimes goes unrecognized, but kind of like mourning the things that you used to be able to do, right? If you were very active, if you were going to the office every day, or if you felt like you had more purpose prior to 60 or prior to retirement, sometimes grieving that part of yourself and moving forward from there. But kind of what we said, it is preventable and you can make a difference. Sometimes we think that this should be left up to the mental health professionals, but you as a peer, as an individual who is connected to a senior, you still have an impact and you absolutely can make a difference. So kind of like what I mentioned in my previous slide, there are certain factors that make an increased suicide risk. So the first one you'll see is male gender. So the suicide rate for men is 3 to 4 times higher than it is for women. A couple other ones up here, and I don't know if looking at the screen, is anything sticking out to anyone or anything that might have come up for you looking at some of these, and I'll give you guys some time to review it. But anything that sticks out to you?
When you say stick out, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. So anything that might not have come to mind as a factor or a risk, or anything surprising that is a factor or a risk, or new information that you might be learning that's a factor or a risk.
I'm surprised to see sleep deprivation on the list.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Monica. So that also stuck out to me, and maybe I was trying to get y'all to have the same answer as me. But yeah, for sure. Sleep deprivation. Sleep is so important. We minimize how important that might be, or sleeping too much, right? And kind of looking at the signs of that. If someone was very active and now you're not seeing them, all they want to do is stay inside and sleep, that would be concerning as well. And a couple other ones mentioned up here, previous suicidal behavior. So of course we want to keep an eye on that individual, or just check in on them more than you might usually if you know that they are at risk of suicidal behavior because of previous suicidal behavior. Recent loss, right? If an individual has lost a loved one and they're grieving, or if they've lost multiple people that they typically spend their time with, whether it's peers or someone they just had a very close connection to. Chronic illness is a big one, right? I always think about if I'm physically in pain, mentally that probably doesn't feel good as well. It's really hard to be happy when your body doesn't feel good. History of abuse or trauma. Lynn's team is doing some great work on ACEs and adverse childhood experiences. So these are some things to keep in mind, especially when you're in contact with an individual and you're noting shifts in how they're feeling.
Or if I may jump in
Yeah,
to
of course.
add one more point that we see a lot is a factor that really increases the risk and the impulsivity of a self-harming behavior is if something significant had just happened with a primary relationship, such as an argument or a big fallout between an important relationship that one has, whether with a partner, a family member. And oftentimes we see that can be sort of the impetus for that impulsive behavior in that moment. So what that tells us is to pay attention to those around us who may be going through a crisis, a relationship crisis, because we know that that is a factor that can change the direction in that moment.
And I would think in today's world, values are changing. Just basic human values. Up is down, green is yellow. We don't know what we're looking at.
Right.
And I just think more people are suffering. When I look at what's going on in this country, how people, all you have is your name, and when you throw that away, you consciously do that, and people know that. I'm thinking that what we hear on the news today, I really refuse to believe that those people are comfortable. A lot of people, I'm not talking politics, but I am. People with what they're doing, we need to know what we're looking at. I think that is, to me, that is indicative of a really serious mental problem in our country for that many people to just stand up and openly throw, in my opinion, throw their name away like they're doing.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's a great point, Mrs. Cox. And seeing the world change around you, right? What it used to look like to what it looks like now and everything that's going on. So current events can also be very triggering for an individual. All right, so here's some stats. And when we look at these stats, they're very interesting because adults over 60, although they comprise 12% of the population, they make up approximately 18% of suicides. So when you look at those numbers and you look at that next point, in 2020, out of 46,000 suicides in the US, 9,137 were people over 65. That's a very high number. Um, and I'm just gonna sit with that for a second and let y'all look at the slide as well. But I think that kind of what you said, Mrs. Cox, that this is a topic that is a sleeper topic, but it's affecting a lot of people.
I have a question. Do you think that's because they feel that they're being neglected or just set aside, not being included in certain things that are going on, even in their families?
Yeah, I actually do think that, Mary. I think when I look at seniors, even in my own family structure, right, as the way that we used to treat seniors, in my opinion, versus the way we treat them now, just taking your time to help someone with groceries or being acknowledging that person in the family structure when you're sitting at the table and having just that utmost honor and respect. I do personally notice a decline, and I don't know if Mary, you could speak to that, Lynn, or anyone else in the room, if you felt that or you've observed that as well.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mary, if I may jump in, is that it's a very complex picture. So I think there are many, many dimensions and factors that go into the statistics of why we see adults over 60, overrepresented. And I think if we look at it, we can see what is important for adults over 60, right? Usually it's relationships. It's the relationships, the connections that you have with your families and your community and your faith, right? And when that is impacted, and over the past few years, relationships are really all impacted, right? We have been deprived of what is naturally and normally protective for us. So when that most protective factor is compromised, the risk increases, right? So that is the relationship and the connections, the intergenerational disconnection that many folks feel nowadays. And also, we'll cover it more later, but in terms of chronic illness, as someone ages, you may be more at risk for having chronic illnesses, including chronic pain, for example. And then also, there's a mention of the third point here of lethal methods. And we'll talk more about that with the program that we have that specifically addresses this, is that there may be more lethal methods available, such as firearms, such as, large amounts of medication, whether it's prescription or over the counter. And those are lethal methods that folks use for self-harm. So that's a great question. And I hope that we'll tap into some of those reasons. And most importantly, where you see yourself, how you can help mitigate the risk factors that we have in our adults over 60. Yes, I see Evelyn raised her hand.
This week I heard a new acronym that I noted, which was FIP, formerly important person.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Wow, I learned something. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That I think
Important
it
person.
hooks in especially to older men. If they used to have some more power and now are very depressed because they've lost that power.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
right. That is very important. That's yeah, yeah, that's a
They
good.
can be irritating, formerly important persons.
Thank you, Evelyn. I've never heard that before. Definitely learning something new. Um, and then thank you, Lynn. He covered in terms of the lethal methods. And then among people who attempt suicide, 1 in 4 will succeed. So I do want to talk about that a little bit because even if seniors fail a suicide attempt, they are less likely to recover from the effects. So just keeping that in mind that their attempt might look different for them and then that their recovery from the attempt will look different from them as well. And then the last point is men 65 and older face the highest overall rate of suicide, which was mentioned in the last slide as well. So this slide speaks to that transition period of some of the things we might not think about when we're transitioning into retirement. I think sometimes there's like this glossy view of retirement in terms of all the positives that come with it, but we don't always reflect on some of the things that we might struggle with when transitioning. When you had like a very structured schedule, you felt like for some people, work gives them a lot of purpose. It might look different once you're in retirement. You don't have your coworkers that you were seeing all the time and having those connections. So losing that, feeling like your day doesn't have routine. I know my previous supervisor, when she retired, she made her own structure. She loved aqua aerobics and she loved people. So she made her community from that and she made her own schedule from that. So that was a beautiful way to take her power back and make a schedule that gave her purpose. And some other things that you might, sorry, my screen is. Some other things you might notice about yourself as a senior, feeling unhappy about your body's physical changes, becoming tired more quickly, noticing changes in your ability to hear, kind of speaking back to that self-sufficiency and grieving around that. And also asking for help, right? If you're a very independent individual who hasn't had to ask for help, then being able to take the power to ask for help, that could also be very difficult for a lot of individuals. I'm just giving y'all an additional second to read any additional points on the slide or ask any questions or provide any comments if you would like.
And working with seniors, some people I noticed, some people are having serious financial issues, and not everybody will acknowledge that. They don't want to make a public announcement of it, but that is a sleeper issue with, that I found in our community with several people.
A great point.
That's a great point, Mrs. Cox.
It's like even when they're asking for help, they don't really ask for help. They're embarrassed, but that's the world we live in now. And they really need to step up to the plate and advocate on their own behalf. And we need to put it out there so that they will feel like it's all right. It's not, they have no reason to be embarrassed because they're having financial issues. And a lot of people may not know how to handle it, but I'm just feel so blessed to be in Arlington and have a your agency is so proactive, being in the community. And that growing up, I really wasn't aware of just how active you were. But at this stage, I'm really thankful for what you all do in the community. But that is, I found is a real sleeper issue.
That's such a great point, Ms. Cox, and we definitely see that. I mean, you are talking about, older adults feeling a lot of stress and anxiety about feeling like you're a burden, right? A burden to a family, a burden to a community, and coming for or even acknowledging that you may need, assistance, which the county has, is a challenge, and that this is part of the work is we want to normalize this conversation that to normalize and to validate the experiences that we have and to say that there are resources out there that can help during this time and also destigmatize. We want to destigmatize ideas of mental health, destigmatize suicide risk, that that we could and should talk about suicide and if someone has thought of self-harm because of these various reasons. So yes, thank you for your help with raising this awareness on this issue, and you're so spot on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Cox. And kind of to Lynn's point, some of the strategies that you want to keep in mind through the aging and retirement process. And to your point, Mrs. Cox, talking to friends and family and being open with them and normalizing this, because sometimes when we hear other people talk about that, it'll feel less taboo for us and we'll open up about what we're going through. Enjoying a healthy lifestyle, refraining from excessive drug and alcohol use, and being able to ask for help. Kind of what we've been saying through the slides, it's okay to ask for help and normalizing that as well. And then of course, staying connected with your doctor, possibly exploring a mental health professional, connecting with your spiritual or faith-based advisor, and your local medical center as well.
So I'll jump in here, and we want to talk about chronic pain as it relates to suicide prevention. So many people who may have chronic pain that is constant, a discomfort, and that can be, restrictions places on their daily activities, and also it can contribute to feelings of sadness, irritability, and hopelessness. So some people may feel may begin to feel depressed or helpless if they think that the pain will never end and that there is nothing they can do about it. But in actuality, there's quite a bit that we can do to help, strategies to manage your pain. For example, if we tell your doctor about, your experience with pain, educate yourself on chronic pain, and keep a pain diary. Oftentimes when we have pain, we just kind of write it off and just think that this is just a new me or a new part of me and I just have to bear it. But if you keep a pain diary and rate yourself daily, for example, of what this pain level is, let's say 0 to 10, 10 is the greatest pain. And if you're hovering, at 5, 6 level, that's very high pain. Without seeing it on paper and just, it'll hit you. It's like, wow, this is a high level of pain. Maybe I should talk to someone. And maybe this is not normal. Maybe there's something I can do about it. So sometimes keeping that pain diary will kind of, keep it real for you in terms of seeing how serious the issue may be for you. And then hopefully it will prompt, discussions with your medical professionals about it. Finding ways to stay physically active is also a good strategy. I know that we did yoga with our group here, a couple of years ago, and that was wonderful in the chair yoga. We love to bring that back at some point as well. So having something that is kind of on a schedule and something that is at a pace that would be conducive to your changing, abilities. I think is important because the more fitting that is, the more likely you stick with it. Whether it's a quick, walk around the block or around the house, things like that would really help in the long run. And treatment options can include a number of things. One is physical therapy to manage the pain, therapy and counseling for, the emotional distress, the anxiety, or the feelings of depression or hopelessness. And relaxation techniques is wonderful. We've come a long way with kind of like the mind and body work, mindfulness. There's so much that we can do. And even if you look on YouTube, there are very short 5 minutes relaxation guidance in terms of breathing, and pick something that works, and then try to stick with it for a couple of weeks. You really see the difference. And in some cases, prescription medications helps. Sometimes, despite our best behavioral efforts to address the issues, if we're too anxious and too depressed, we're not able to get to that behavioral change that we need and want. So consult with your, medical doctor, any kind of mental health professional, to see if prescription medication may help to take that edge off, so that you can get into behavioral strategies that helps you manage the situation better. Okay. Next slide. Protective factors. We've been talking about this in terms of what are they and how can they prevent a crisis. Feeling connected with others is so important in general, and I think with adults over 60, that, as I said earlier, is so critical. And as you know, it really is a strong value. And in terms of a, cultural perspective, what we find, and I was talking to Cora about this, is that in all of our kind of studies and research, we found that African American women, for a very long time, were the most protected group in terms of suicide risk, right? The most protected group in terms of suicide risk. And on the opposite of that is maybe, older adult white males, right? But let's talk about why is it that the protective factors in older African-American women found over the years. And if you look at family structures, right? If you look at grandparents who are taking care of the family, who is serving as a very important role in the family, like maybe a matriarch, and the idea of, I need to be strong, and I need to take care of, this person or that person or this and that, has been a protective factor. But we know that there is a weathering effect as well, right? That to be a caretaker for so long and for so many people, there's a cost to maybe not taking care of ourselves, right? So we are aware of that, and I think that we want to encourage our caretakers to also begin to take care of themselves, because caring for the caretaker is important in this picture. Okay. The other protective factors are, maintaining skills to solve problems, to manage challenges positively. And I think part of, maybe the risk for us older adults too is that, there's a lack of opportunities to practice these problem solving. There's a lack of opportunities to be engaged with family members or communities to be at the table to solve issues, right? Which is a critical identity, for older adults as well. So we want to have that in our schedule. I think it's wonderful that your senior ministry meet so regularly for many years. I know that Ms. Brenna has talked to me about this, that you've been meeting consistently over the years, and that is a huge, huge strength and protective factor that you have for one another, right? The consistency and the sense of, empowerment and efficacy that you have, and the camaraderie that you have when you do meet. Maintaining good physical and emotional health is important. And then restricting access to lethal means, right? Be it a firearm, a gun, or excessive amount of medication. If there are medication that you don't use, we have ways to dispose of them properly. And if you have medication that you're using, to properly and safely store them. so that prevents, quick access or prevent access from other family members in the home. That keeps the home safe as well. And lastly, and perhaps the most importantly, is the willingness to seek help or treatment, to begin to talk to someone that you trust, and then to begin to to explore possibilities of professional consultation on what you're going through. Okay.
Len, before you move on,
Yes,
can we
ma'am.
go back to one of the points you made? Did I understand you to say that Black women traditionally are the most protected in terms of suicide?
That's right. That's right. So that means that Black older African American women have the lowest rate of suicide.
Okay.
And we all try to understand, why that is, because, and we want to kind of replicate the protective factors that may be in place for African American women, right? So that we can replicate that and have that with other demographics. But I believe that number is changing though over the past few years because of a number of things. The pandemic clearly like level everybody and really compromises everyone's ability to cope and to manage. And also, and I'm not trying to be political here, but our political climate over the past few years have been very stressful racially, right? There's a lot of racial trauma that our society is experiencing. And those things I would, postulate, I would suggest that it impacts African Americans' ability to cope. So being aware of those issues, I think in conversations and validating, yeah, it's been really tough because of this and that. Real conversations about that is important.
Have you seen are people approaching you to get help? Is this what we're doing today a part of what you all see as a need, or how is it?
It's a
Are
great
people
question.
actively seeking out help with
Yes,
suicide prevention?
yes, absolutely. And if not seeking help, then there are signs that folks are presenting with more symptoms and distress, mental health distress. And we saw that very clearly with the youth that we served, the African American youth that we served, way back with George Floyd around that time. We saw a huge spike in young Black men, young Black boys coming to us, expressing lots of hopelessness, lots of anxiety and depression. So and we try to be responsive in terms of having prevention and treatment programs that are very direct in addressing and talking about the racial trauma that our clients are experiencing. Yes, and I
Can
think
I?
Mary was raising her hand. Yes, ma'am. Miss Mary.
Yes, I was going to speak to that. I am 81 years old, and I can see all the changes that is going on with our young people in the family structure.
Yes.
As you get older, the young people don't see your worth anymore. They feel that they know everything.
Right.
And so sometimes we as older persons and older people, we take a step back and we suffer because we don't want to lose their love and their friendship. And so a lot of things we don't say. But as you said before, as the older Black women, they were the pillars of their families.
Yes.
And they try to keep things in structure. But now this is our children's friend, not the family and not the older person, because we don't know anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of times, if you're not a strong person, you can go into a depression.
Right.
And, and things will change for you, but you just have to just keep holding on, and pray that, eventually things will get better.
Yes. Yes. That is so spot on in terms of that loss of status, right? And the identity, really. I mean, the identity that this is what defines me as a mother, as a grandmother. And now, it's helpless to feel like that's not needed, or that is shifting where I cannot assert that gift or that value that I feel like I have in my family and community and it creates a lot of distress.
It does.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be isolated completely from the, your young people. So you just grin and bear it sometimes. But it's really painful, to see what you see, and they don't see the value of, your knowledge.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, Thank you, Marion. I see Monica's hand as well.
Yes, I was just going to say, in the political climate that we're in with this national election, have you noticed any increase among the older population in anxiety as a result of the fierce competition that's going on between the two parties? And this is not only at the federal level, but at state and local levels, because there are so many issues that could affect older people at stake. In terms of Medicare, continued Social Security benefits. And I was just curious if you see more anxiety during this time period, because we are in the midst of a huge political uh, 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 election period.
Yes. Absolutely. Cora, do you have any thoughts on that? I know that you run interdisciplinary team meetings and you have contact with many members of our community at all age levels.
Yeah, so the community that my team mainly serves is kiddos. So I don't want to say I could speak directly to seniors. I mean, I can imagine, because even with our kiddos, their stress level has been really high. Like the increase that we've seen in terms of our kids' needs and the acuity that they're coming in is very high. So I can't imagine, especially when we're talking about too, like our undocumented youth and how this would affect them as well. I definitely see a higher stress level, but I don't want to say specifically to seniors because I can't speak to that.
Right, right. I appreciate that response. I experienced this with another coalition group that I'm involved with. It's called the Arlington Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families. So it is a coalition that is community-led, and we have many older adults involved, community members. And we do hear about a lot of stress. Just what you're talking about, Ms. Monica, is that, I think so much of the politics now, there's values involved, it's deep, deep core values tied to it. And so it is really, really impactful to everyone. And I say particularly, for the reasons you mentioned, is it does tie to very concrete support needs as well beyond values, like your medical health, your medical access, your medication costs. These are just very concrete, important issues, for this population that can sway left or right, depending on outcome. So I think it behooves us to listen to our community and our friends and family when folks are distressed. It is founded, the fear is founded, the anxiety is founded. And I think we do our best to listen, to validate, and to provide support without getting political, because we're county, so we can't do that. But we definitely see the symptoms that folks are presenting in all this. Yes.
Monica, I have 6 older siblings, and just this morning there's a little hubbub of one sister has said she's distressed about the election, and a brother-in-law says just trust Jesus, and my sister says that is not helpful. I do trust Jesus, but I'm still stressed, and somebody else says we should be able to express our tension, our emotions. So my own family is in the middle of it this morning.
Thank you for sharing that. I know my family is as well. And I just wondered if we were atypical, or if there is an increase in anxiety and anxiousness about the outcome of these elections, which have received extreme television following and podcasts and all that. It just seems like a higher stress level than usual. And I wondered if that was my personal perception or if others have experienced that. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yes. And you can see the value in us talking about it is normalizing, because when we don't talk about these sensitive matters, we are isolated, and we may think, okay, being reactive, but no, it's really happening across the board, and it's validating, it's normalizing, and just to listen and to hear each other. In that, there is, a cathartic and a curative process that happens when we are able to provide listening ears to our fellow humans, right? Okay, can we go to the next slide, Cora? Thank you for a very robust discussion. I appreciate this. So some of the warning signs, I won't read through it in the interest of time, so we have a few more slides that we want to cover. But some warning signs is if you're looking at like really changes in behavior, right? Dramatic changes in behavior, some things that maybe very clearly is more focused or talk on death or dying or suicide, right? Or someone directly saying, that they want to harm themselves, or maybe, they're better off dead. You may see behavioral change such as folks giving valuable things away, right? Giving value trinkets that they've held on for so long away. For youth and children, we see them giving away their favorite toys, for example, or, when they're gaming, because when you're gaming, sometimes you have accounts, your gaming accounts, and then you gain credits for playing for how many hours. So kids actually give their accounts away, and that's a sign for us, an alert for us to have a conversation. Why are you doing that? You've been working very hard to gain all these credits that you have. So we have conversations when we see those dramatic, changes in behavior. Okay, next slide.
All right. I actually love this quote. What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, and more unashamed conversation. And exactly what Lynn spoke to, just being more open in so many ways, more open around our conversations, more open around these, I think Mrs. Cox calls them sleeper topics,
Yeah.
because they are topics that we may sleep on, but we need to stay awake and really be aware. And us sharing an experience can really help another individual in their healing process. So again, to the point of just having a simple conversation. So in no ways do we expect you all to be the experts, but when someone feels heard or feels supported, that loneliness feeling that they're feeling, it can really help with that. And just providing a space for them to be open. We always say with suicidality, it's very helpful and important to be direct, because sometimes individuals won't talk about it voluntarily, but if you ask direct questions, they will or might open up once they see that they're being seen and someone is willing to hear them out. So just at the bottom, you'll see that reminder that the goal is to provide support and not fix the situation.
Yes, and I like to that end, Cora, I want to kind of reinforce your message a little bit, is that when someone, is, at the lowest point in terms of their spirituality and their morale, their feelings, and they're very desperate, and they are actually feeling so much psychic pain that that killing oneself is a real option for them, that they're thinking that's the best option, right? So folks do get to that point, but it's still a very conflicting and ambivalent point to be, because as humans, we're kind of hardwired to self-preserve. As humans, we're hardwired to not kill ourselves, to prolong our lives. So it's hard and stressful to stay at that level. So someone in that moment, at that moment of thinking of killing themselves, is still questioning it, and would often say, like, God, give me a sign, give me a sign, somebody give me a sign that I shouldn't do this right now. And that is why, it's a critical window for all of us to be able to make a huge impact at that moment. And when we see someone distressed, you don't have to be a therapist or a clinician, but just to reach out and say, are you okay? I don't know exactly what to say, but can I sit with you? Can I sit with you for a little bit right now? And together we can work this out. We can figure something out. Maybe I have a number that we can call, right? That is huge in terms of what we find as one single action that an individual can do that can change the course and prevent a suicide. Thank you. Next slide.
So this slide just has some helpful words to say if you kind of can't find the words that you're looking for, or you just kind of feel like you're in an awkward space, you don't know how to approach the individual. But as simple as saying, I've been worried about you lately, right? That's helpful, knowing that someone cares and someone is seeing that there's a shift in behavior. Okay, this person really pays attention to me. Maybe somebody does care. I wanted to check in with you. You don't seem like yourself. Or you've been acting different and I'm wondering how you're doing. It's just that importance. I think Miss Mary mentioned it about feeling seen, right? Even from the younger individuals in our family to people outside of our family, feeling heard and feeling seen. I think we underestimate the importance of that sometimes. And then from there, kind of once you let them know you're worried, you are welcome to ask any of these questions that feel most fitting or most comfortable. Kind of asking when they started feeling that way. And then you'll see the third one, what I was mentioning about being direct. Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of suicide? It's not helpful if you're tiptoeing around the subject. It's better to be direct and ask those questions so that the person can open up about their experiences.
Okay, so yes, treatment works, and I'm glad I'm hearing this message a number of times in our time today, is that yes, praying helps a lot, but sometimes in addition to praying, um, talking to a professional and understanding further, what you're experiencing, open yourself up to opportunities of engaging with professional services is also helpful. But we don't want to lean completely on professional help. Lean on your natural support, a friend or somebody in the family, an uncle or a cousin that you have, an experience of them being supportive of you. Maybe it was a while ago, but still there is that history. You want to re-engage with that, touch base with the protective factors that you have, the relationship that works for you. That is a huge first step and usually is the most effective. Informal help is oftentimes more often useful than formal help for many of our communities, especially Black and Indigenous people of color communities, of ethnic minority communities, because we are a culture that is collectivistic. We lean on each other, quite a bit on a well-being. So in times of crisis, we should do that as a first step as well. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so we'll make our PowerPoint available to our whole group here. Miss Brenda and Miss Michelle can send it out, but if you click on here, it may not work if we do it. But it gives, it shows all of our programs, our trainings, our services. This is a very brief training that we have today, but we have a more robust, an 8-hour training called Mental Health First Aid that is evidence-based, that gets you to role play when you see someone at risk. How can you, intervene at that moment? So that's a training we recommend for everyone. And that is offered on a regular schedule at the county. So you can contact us, contact me, and I will definitely connect you to how to get to that training. Okay, next. And here are some additional resources. There's a 24-hour emergency. We're very blessed in Arlington, as Ms. Cox was saying earlier, that we have a lot of resources, and we are one of few counties that has our own emergency mental health 24/7 support here, that you can call or you can even text. That's the first number there if you're going through some challenges. And then the adult behavioral health has a whole different bureau on senior adult mental health. So you can call for screening, for services, for consultation. They have kind of comprehensive support, so you can have a case manager that really assess, all your levels of needs. It may not just be mental health; it may be other service needs and resources that you need to be connected to, and that's our adult behavioral health. And then our children's behavioral health, which is where Cora and I sit. And we provide A to Z services for children and youth up to 17 years of age. And then in crisis, we have a local number. This is one of 7 crisis response centers, and we're fortunate again to have this in Fairfax. And that is the 844 number right there, which is also 24/7 in many languages that can quickly assess and then connect you to services. And then the last thing there is pretty cool. I did the research the last time we did the presentation, and there's a friendship line that started in California, but this is available nationwide now. So senior adults or older adults can call this number when they feel lonely, right? So some older adults are very isolated, maybe isolated from families, and that they may want to talk to someone every day, that they naturally do not have that connection. This is a number that you can call, again, through different languages too, all free of service. Okay, so that importance of connection is so critical in helping someone, you know, overcome a crisis or a difficult situation. Okay. And I think that's it for us, Cora, in terms of our presentation. I know that we're spot on at 10 o'clock. We have a few minutes more to get additional feedbacks and conversations and questions from you. I really appreciate the conversation we had today. Thank you, Mary. I see you clapping.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
Yeah. No, this has been a powerful program. Given the world we live in, I just have a question. How are our children doing? I know this is a senior ministry, but we have people with our youth and the guns in school.
Yes. Well, you know, I
Is
think
that an issue here? Or how much of an issue is it here?
yeah,
What can
I
we
think
do?
I think our issue here is not any extraordinarily higher than other regions in terms of firearm access. However, we are going on all engines firing on lethal means. And if you are able to get to a swag bag that I dropped off at the church office, I brought in, I think 30 beautiful insulated shopping bags for you to use. And then it's filled with a number of things, information, and also some safety devices, right? So we have a lock and talk that. Thank you. Thank you. Don't tell. Great assistance here. So that is a medication lockbox. And those are medication deactivation pouches when I talked about disposing medication that you don't use. And then the gun locks. There you go. That is how you secure your firearms in the home. To limit access not only to youth, but you know, someone who may be in crisis. And that's a fun thing. That's a phone stand. So you can have that at your dining room table and watch all the YouTubes, you know, that you want. Stress balls, right? So we want to take care of our stress at home. And I think there may be a number of, yes, that's
those are fun.
That's a heat pack. You can have that in the microwave or in the freezer. So heat and cold pack for your boo-boos at home.
In a pad.
And a little notepad.
Oh,
These are available will be available for you tomorrow at church.
Wonderful.
He has delivered them, and I spoke with LaVon. She said that the ushers will probably have them in the back of the church, but very nice.
Yes.
Cannot not support as a community member, support Arlington Social Services with the information that they give. It's priceless. They're the strength. That's why we are able to do, but these are at the church for you.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. If you need more, just let me know. I will hand deliver them to you. And if you want us, Cora and I, to come and speak to another group, another ministry, or a larger group, a larger, you know, congregation, we would be happy to do that. And I will, you know, connect with our youth ministry and to see where we can help there, because I know that's an important, critical piece in our conversation is our youth are, you know, are struggling. And we need to have conversations. We need to listen to them and see how we can change the direction of where things are going. You know, and just you know, I don't want to end on this note, but it's a call for us to engage with youth. Is that really for the first time in Arlington, we are seeing data where African American youth are leading in depression and anxiety. So we collect data every year in the schools. Over 2,800 students are surveyed in middle school and high schools. And African Americans, more so than their counterparts, are saying that they're having a hard time coping. So we really need to pay attention to that and do what we can to collaborate, and to coordinate our service so we help this critical group.
Thank you. I think that's real. I don't have children, but I think that's a sleeper issue. It's not on the forefront, and just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean that it's not there. And it may be that, even with our district, we could bring it in to just create more of awareness. And I would think that the other social service agencies in the other counties, Prince William, Fairfax, they are as active as you are in reaching out to their populations, I would think.
Yes, we work together quite a bit. Yes, Miss Mary.
Yes, do you go into the schools, the different schools here in the county?
We absolutely do. We do quite a lot of collaboration with school student services. We have a good relationship with the directors, and we actually have some youth groups that we work with, like the Teen Network Board. We work closely with the NAACP youth group. We work with Bugada. Bugada has a group called Buckingham Youth Brigade. So we work with them, we work for them, and we collaborate on many events that are provided directly to the students, yes.
Okay, but you don't go into a school per se.
We have counselors now positioned in the
That
schools.
go into
That's the new
schools,
thing.
okay.
Yeah, so we have 4 of our DHS counselors that are in schools and work with the school counselors. They need the extra help. They're just overwhelmed. They're doing great work, but they need the extra help, and we do that. So we're there at the treatment level. We're there at the prevention level as well with the schools.
Lynn,
Thank you.
I know you mentioned also questions about around COVID. Have you seen more instances with the elementary school kids as well?
You mean those positive for COVID, or I'm sorry?
No, after
The COVID, yes.
right.
Yeah. So, right. So
sorry.
anxiety is across the board, and it starts earlier and earlier, right? So our data is from middle school and high schools, but I know that in terms of what parents are saying, that the younger kids are also impacted. And it makes sense because, COVID leveled everything, right? When parents were challenged and, themselves with all the issues, they had to press pause on that to take care of the kids. And they can only do that for so long. So they're compromised as well. I don't blame parents, but parents, teachers, everybody in the community. So we begin to see the impact on younger and younger kids. And because of that, we're actually doing, and this is a heads up, that we are doing a phenomenal community presentation on the 19th of November. And I'll send out flyers to make sure that you're connected. But we're bringing in a psychologist to talk about anxiety, how parents can work with their kids and anxiety directly. And I trust that everyone will leave that presentation with gold nuggets from this man, and that's in person and virtual. So you have many ways to engage with that. Yes, I see Miss Vivi. I'm sorry.
Vianne.
Thank you.
Vianne.
Vianne, yes.
Hi, Lynn and
Yes.
Carly. I'm on the Marcus Mission group, Marcus Alert Mission.
Marcus Alert.
Are you in that group too?
I know Tiffany Jones. I work very close with her, but she's a sister unit, and we work together. We're all in DHS. Yes.
I wanted to ask you. You didn't mention 988 as a number. Was there any particular reason? Is it
That's a great question. Thank you for your astuteness. Yes. So we are intentional not pushing that here because 988 has been out for quite a bit now. But it still has some challenges, meaning that it does not have the technology like 911. So when you call 911, it can triangulate where that call is coming from with GPS. So it knows exactly where that call is coming from. With 988, it's not connected to that service. So if I'm from Texas and I have a phone that is, registered in Texas, but I live in Arlington, when I call in 988, it thinks that I'm in Texas. and it connects me to to the numbers in Texas, where the crisis line that we gave is in Fairfax. So that's our local. That's one of the 7 call centers. So it's more direct. It'll connect you to local resources quicker. So that's the reason why we didn't push it here. But we do have 988 info. Yes.
Right, but so the number that you gave us
Yes.
is for Fairfax Alert.
It's for
So-
the region. It's for the whole region. They're located in Fairfax, but it's for the whole region. And there's also a text. You can text there as well. And about 34% of our community members here reach them through texting.
Oh, good to know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, these are great questions. I am mindful of the time. We're pushing a little bit past 10, and I want to respect everyone's, time.
We appreciate that. And I always say that our sessions are priceless. You don't know what you don't know. And I want to thank you sincerely for coming to us and sharing this with us. And prayerfully, we will get together and pass it on, especially to our youth. We'll find out how to use it and keep it. I want to thank all of you all for signing on today. I want to remind you, as seniors, that we're in VICAP, and VICAP is having a special session since we're in the Medicare open season. Michelle is having a session Monday at Walter Reed from 10 to 12. And it's open season, and you need to call in and go in to evaluate your Medicare. Don't assume that you're going to have all of the benefits that you had before. Evaluate it every year. I want to thank Evelyn for calling in. She's with our sister church. Our relationship will have started 10 years ago next year with the Charleston massacre. But thanks, Evelyn, for coming. And of course, Mr. Scipio is on with us today. I want to thank all of you all for calling in. Take this information and use it, share it accordingly, and prayerfully our church will make some effort to pass it on. And we're having your contact information. This is being recorded.
Yeah.
So we need to speak specifically to that. You want to give out your numbers or before some of us, we're seniors, we may be a little technically challenged.
Okay.
So can you speak to that to give contact information, Cora?
Sure. So it's Coralie Kenneal. My email is CCON as in Nancy, ILLE @arlingtonva.us. And my phone number is 703-228-1102. And y'all can reach me for anything. And if I don't have the answers, I will surely direct you to who does have them.
Thank you, Cora. And you can
So-
also contact me as well. My email is in the chat, and it's lnghe@arlingtonva.us. And my phone number is 703-228-1528. And if you can't get a hold of me, let Miss Brenda know. She always gets a hold of me.
So will the slides from today's presentation be made available to us?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Is it anything else that we need to share with each other at this point? Please share, and the announcement is in the bulletin about the VICAP workshop on Monday at 10 o'clock at Walter Reed. Please pass that on. We need to do that. And I want to thank Lynn and Cora for coming in and giving us a very insightful presentation and really prompting us to think outside of the box and not just for seniors. This is right on time. Prayerfully, we won't have to use it, but it's there if we need it.
Yes.
And I just encourage you to take it and share it. Is it anything else we need to share with each other now before I ask Reverend Monica to pray us out? Michelle.
And I want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting us today. And I had a question for Lynn. You said the session on November 19th. Some of us
Yes,
still working, so I want to put it on my calendar now so I
yes,
can be prepared. November 19th, where is it and what time?
yes, thank you. It is 6 to 7, 6 p.m. to
Okay.
7 p.m. In person would be at Central Library, and we will have it live streaming, most likely
Okay.
through YouTube, so you can participate there as well. But there will be a flyer, that formally will announce it probably next week that it'll go out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much again for having us. We would love
Okay,
to
thank
come
you.
anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Reverend Monica, you end us with a prayer, please.
Okay, let us pray. Gracious Lord, we are grateful for this opportunity to gather virtually to receive this very important information concerning our mental health and suicide prevention. We thank you for the very informative speakers that you graced us with. We thank you for the participants who shared questions, observations, and insights. We thank you for all that we learned, and we thank you for just being with us and keeping us informed and inspired. Now dismiss us from this session, but never from your presence. Give us the assurance of your presence with us throughout this day, and we will be forever grateful to give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Let all say amen.
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 Okay.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a
Bye.
great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Amen.
Thank
Bye.
you.
So
Bye,
much.
Suze.
Thank you.
Very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Say thank you to